My whole career is an exercise in failure and the acceptance of failure and the working with it and making that the road to the success.
Welcome to Season 2 of the TheKnifeWife podcast. I'm Suz, here with my husband,
Bob Terzuola.
We're professional creatives and entrepreneurs who live, love, and work together. We share our stories to find ourselves in others. P.S. This podcast has little to do with knives. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming back and listening. This is Season 2 of the TheKnifeWife podcast, and I can't believe there's a Season 2, and the only reason there is because neither Bob nor I can do a TikTok dance. Anyway, I'm Suz Terzuola, and here's my partner in crime,
Bob Terzuola.
There we go. And today we have someone who is near and dear to our hearts for many reasons. One, we work together on the Crash television show. He played Mr. Park, and when I read the scripts that he was in, I thought, oh, this guy's going to be mean and sour and whatever. And we did the fitting with his suit, and he had us all in hysterics because he has such a great sense of humor. And we just clicked. We just hit it off. And so this season, I am inviting people who are creative, more creative types. So the person who's here today, when I looked him up, Mr. Kelvin Han Yee, when I looked him up on IMDb, I just told him this. I said, you have more entries than a New York phone book. You have been working and working your whole life. And it's very impressive. But I met him on Crash, the television show, and he was Mr. Park. That's why they call it acting, because he's nothing like his character on that. We were just doing some in-studio stuff and trying to get hooked on and whatever. And it was fun. It was just the most fun technical thing I've ever done. Anyway, so without further ado, can I introduce Mr. Kelvin Han Yee?
Oh, hey, Suz. Bob.
Hi, Kelvin.
Good morning.
It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm serious. I'm a big fan of yours. And I am just in awe of what both of you do. But, I have a sort of a lifelong sort of fetish for knives and bladed tools and weapons and the history of swords and knives and stuff and a connection with martial arts. So I'm a huge Bob Terzuola fan.
Well, thank you, Kelvin.
And, thanks. I even sent you a knife.
Of yours also, Suz.
Yeah, I know you are.
I carry it everywhere I go, and I have it right here.
I heard that knife
nice
click.
And smooth.
Yep.
Did you hear that?
Yep.
Yeah, nice and smooth. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, and I'm in awe of it.
Yeah.
Well,
when we produced that knife,
thank you, Kelvin.
It's called the ATCF Light.
Yeah.
We made a smaller version and lighter and thinner because I see lots of knives in guys' pockets all the time. And I pay attention to pockets and clothes. And I would see the pocket hanging down and it looked ridiculous. And so I thought, we need one for a dress pair of pants that is a lighter weight material that doesn't weigh on the pocket. And so that's the one I sent you just because I love you. There's no reason. I just sent it to you. I thought you would love it. And I know you were following.
It's so perfect.
Yeah.
It's so perfect for that, Suz. I'll wear it with dress pants as well. I've worn it with suits, and it fits right on the edge of that pocket, right by the seam, right? And it's very secure there. And then it slips out right into your hand in the most perfect position, and it's a piece of art. It really is. It's a piece of work.
Bob, says
I love it.
Art is useless and craft is useful.
I agree with that statement, and I've got to say that's the cornerstone of my art and my work. Yes, it's art. I think it's a very basic art. My art acting, it's a very basic art. It may be one of the first arts that human beings ever did, but it's also the most evolved and complex thing because it is, of course, the fabrication of humans. I play human beings.
Yes, you do.
And I play them using my humanity, my body,
and you do it very, very, very well. We really enjoy watching you on the screen.
Thank you. And Bob, and I just wanted to finish up with my agreeing with your statement about craft is that that's my approach to this art. I throw away all the ego. And really, the reason why I've worked so much is not because I'm the most talented or the best looking guy or whatever. It's because I think that I show up on time and I do the work, and it's about my craft, and that I'm easy to work with in the way that, the way that I'm not getting in the way of the work, or I try not to, right? And it's craft that you use to not get in the way of art just happening. Because that's what it is, right? Art just happens. It's just it's magic that just happens. But you have to have craft and discipline to create the space for that to happen. Mm-hmm. And you do that, Suz, and you do it so well.
Thanks. Well, I have to say, you always showed up on time. We worked on a show where a lot of people didn't even show up, if you remember.
I absolutely remember, yeah.
That was a nightmare. Anyway, I worked with Kelvin. I worked with Dennis Hopper, in Arlene Tour, and Ross McCall, and I worked with Jocko Sims. Yeah, Jocko Sims, who, I watch everything of all you guys. You're like my kids. I know you're not, maybe you're closer to my age than my kid could be. But I really follow you all, and Bob follows with me. But anyway, you showed up. Yeah,
that's amazing.
We watched so many episodes of, what was the Navy thing that Jocko was on about the Navy ship?
It was about a virus or something in the last ship.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, Beth, who worked with us, remember Beth, Death, we called her, because she was all goth, and she was like 6'2", and I said, if I look like you, I'd get rid of those Beetlejuice pants. I'd take the nose piercing out.
Whatever happened to Beth?
She's a costume designer in L.A. She's working, man. She worked with Jocko on another show. But anyway, I wanted you to talk us a little bit about how you got to be an actor. I know how, my husband got to be a craftsperson, but how did you get to be an actor? How did that come about?
It was like my last resort. I was an idiot in high school. I liked to smoke weed.
There we go. Me too.
I liked to hang out, and I liked girls, and I wasn't going to class. And my parents, I was in a college preparatory school, and they wanted me to be a doctor. But just when I was 14, somebody handed me a joint, and then I started to notice girls around that time, and they talked to me, and I talked to them, and I was just really, I had girl friends when I spent a lot of time
in romance.
And having fun, and being in fast cars, loud music.
I understand you were a great success in high school, though, weren't you?
Well, okay, in a way.
In certain arenas.
It got me kicked out of high school. So I never went to college, and my parents gave up on me. And I ran away from home a little bit. But one of the things that I did in high school, the only class that I went to was my theater class, and because I was trying to get an English credit off of this acting thing, which I said, that's easy.
I'll do that.
I can do that.
You ran away from home a little bit. What does that mean? You just went down. You didn't have a big
exactly.
suitcase.
I went down the wrong block. I was working at, you know what? So I didn't go to college. I had a girlfriend that was a stripper. And then I started working where she worked, which was a place called Fantasy and Flesh in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, which was like
I
at
know
the time
where that
in
was.
the early 80s, the
I'm
47.
jealous.
It was like I worked the door, right? I changed money, and my boss, I worked for a guy named Reuben Sturman. Reuben Sturman was the mob. Okay,
You sure he was?
He was the West Coast porn. You can look this guy up. He was the West Coast porn don. He was out of Columbus, Ohio. He was Ohio Jewish mob. Okay, but connected up with I think the Lucchese's in New York, I believe. I'm serious. He in the West Coast, he owned all the dirty bookstores in everywhere, in every town, everywhere, and he invented the coin drop video slot thing where you could watch videos by dropping a coin in. He invented that, literally. And his business was also Doc Johnson. It was the company that made all of the dildos and things. All through the 60s and 70s, he made millions and millions of dollars. Eventually, he went to prison. But I worked for him.
I bet you learned a lot.
Yeah, and it was very, Anyway, but then the other thing that I did was that one of my teachers in high school said, you should go down there's a little theater. It's the Asian American Theater Company in San Francisco. It's a little
have you posted
black box,
pictures
99 cent.
On your social of that?
I
of
posted.
You? Yeah.
Oh, yes, I have. Okay. Absolutely. Because I went down there and I got involved in some theater because it was the one thing that I did in high school I liked and I got into. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there was an explosion of Asian American awareness. Asian kids that were American started telling their own stories on stage in plays and would perform them at this little 99-seat theater. People like David Henry Wong, who I worked with back then. He had just graduated from Stanford University, and he just opened a play on Broadway just a week ago called Yellowface with Daniel Day Kim.
Oh, yes. I saw the opening.
Yeah, it just opened. Right. And so I worked with some of these people, and I also got and worked on some early Asian American films. Among them, A Great Wall, which was a film by Peter Wong. It was the first film. We went to China and made it in 1985, which was an adventure because it was the first American film that was shot in the People's Republic of China. And China had just been opened up by Richard Nixon after being behind the bamboo curtain for 50 years, or whatever, 40 years, whatever it was. And it was an adventure. It was like going to North Korea is today.
Right.
It was everybody dressed the same. We were followed by
the people.
Red guards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were followed by people everywhere we went. And there were places we couldn't go, stuff like that.
They minders.
Anyway. They call them minders.
Yeah,
minders.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly
they're minding
right.
you.
And it was quite an adventure. But I was lucky enough to be involved with. I play Ali Wong's father.
How's Ali Wong? What's she like?
She's a really hard-working gal. And that day, she was totally focused. I think that on that show, she was known as a stand-up comedian for her Netflix stand-up shows.
Yep.
But she really wanted to prove herself as an actor. And so she really approached the work with vigor and was very focused, very, very on her P's and Q's about the acting. When I prepared for that and got to set, I imagined the scene that we did around a dinner table with Huy Dao, who played my wife, her mother, a Vietnamese comedian and television star herself. So we do a little scene that I thought was going to be a much funnier comedic scene. But because of Ali's focus and the tone, it really deepened the scene, and it became not as funny, but more of a deeply ironic and darkly.
Yeah,
and
it
was.
was.
And I think that's the scene that we see, in the show. And so that's how she was. And I think that she did great work and great art.
Well, to be a stand-up, you really have to be an actor, and people don't realize that, I don't think. You just are on the stage all by yourself.
They don't.
You have to be a storyteller.
They don't.
And I know a little bit about this, because what you don't know is that my toes in the water and my late life crisis of doing a little stand-up, so you may be seeing me some places pretty soon.
Oh, that's terrific.
Crazy.
That's good for you. My wife, a few years ago, took a class and did a couple of nights of stand-up herself, just as a personal exercise. And it was tremendous for her. And I think you should, because you're
well, I'm tired of making people laugh.
She can be pretty funny sometimes, let me tell you. Like when she says, bring out the garbage, like in the middle of the night or something.
Well, the thing is...
It's hilarious, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah. The thing I realized late in life is I had an insane childhood. And when I started telling the stories, I've told a few on the podcast, I realized that they could really be funny. But I never thought of myself as an actress. I never, ever wanted to. That was for other people. You know me, I like to be behind the camera. So the fact that I'm going to step out on the stage is pretty... That's a whole other subject. Anyway, so you've been in, I don't know, you've been so many things that, and I bet you have just a lifelong...
But all of them, I'm not a star player. Probably most of the people listening to this probably have not heard of me. But if you see my face, you might faintly recognize, well, I've seen him somewhere.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, mentioning stand-up comedy and stuff, and I was thinking of improvisation. And I was wondering, when you're in front of the camera and you're working and you're doing a scene, do you ever improvise? Do you ever come up with snap little ideas and just say them offhand and have them stick in the show?
Yeah, but I think that you have to be very careful about that and know the set that you're on.
Yes.
I'm usually not a regular player on a show. I come in, but I just did some improv in a show called Space Force. And I'm forgetting the star of that show, but he gave me license to do a little improv because he comes from improv himself. But in a way, especially when you're working for a camera, it's different from theater, where in theater we're trained to really reproduce these moments as closely as possible night after night, right? To carbon copy these so that the different audiences get the same experience. But film, by its nature, film and television is a different thing, and it is a camera that is capturing a living moment. And so the moment has to really live. So if it is a reproduced moment, it tends not to live. But working with a scripted television, working with plays, working with films that are scripted, very often, most often, the words are very important. The people that craft episodic television, crime dramas and things like that, the language is... It's as precise as Shakespeare. It is, especially for something like Grey's Anatomy or something like that, something that has a lot of verbiage. So you have to do the preparation, and those things have to be memorized, and those things have to be reproduced word for word. But the life of the character in that moment, that has to be a real, new, fresh moment. Or else it looks like a manufactured moment.
Yeah, it looks like another take.
Yeah.
And it looks like another take. And for some styles of television shows, that's okay. Sitcoms could come a little bit closer to what theater is, and the moments are a little bit more crafted. But when we strive for naturalism, memorize the words, but you don't memorize the choices, the acting choices, the moment by moment.
Sure.
So, right.
That's Bob's phone
Is that
ringing.
me?
No, that's
Oh,
Bob's
that's me.
phone ringing. He didn't turn his phone down. What are we going to do with these guys? If he was on a set, they'd throw him off.
Yeah, he would have stopped the... Oh, yeah. He
Yeah.
would've, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The AD would be saying,
Yeah,
out.
he would have stopped the whole thing.
But you know what, Bob, to answer your question, I'm not an actor, but I watched a lot of actors. I sat at Video Village day in and day out. And the words actually come second to how they are presented.
Yeah.
And I've seen the same words presented 5 different
Absolutely.
ways. And they all meant something different. So, but not a lot of improv. When the writer is sitting there in episodic television and you've got a director who's only there for 7 days or 8 days, whatever the episode films, he's got to stick to the script because he's got a lot of work to get done that day. So there isn't a lot of room for that.
Kind of
The
brings up
story
another
has
question.
to be told, and
Do you have a preference between those? Is there one that you prefer over others? How does that work?
no, I find all of it fascinating, and I find all of it challenging. And my favorite one right now is the business that I'm breaking into. It's a new art of mine. I'm breaking into the voiceover. I'm doing a lot of dubbing these days, and it is a different kind of acting, and I'm fascinated with how that's done and the craft of that, because Hollywood right now is shrinking since the pandemic and since the 2 strikes that we went through. Hollywood is leaving Hollywood and producing other places, and there is less being produced. There are very few things being produced in Los Angeles right now. Everybody's out of work. I do it because it's the way I make my living. So I've had to branch out a little bit, and I'm doing a lot. I'm being successful at dubbing.
And Netflix moved their headquarters to Albuquerque, and many of my friends still work there and work for them, and New Orleans, Atlanta, mostly southern places because it's cheaper to film. And as from working in the industry, if a producer can save $1 million, that's his $1 million.
Yeah.
That's not the company's. That's his.
The thing I could never understand is that Netflix built these studios right at the airport. And it's not only the Albuquerque airport, it's also Kirtland Air Force Base. So they've constantly got really big planes coming in and out, like right over the studios. I don't know how they deal with it.
Well, they only had two, when they first built Albuquerque studios, they only had 2 soundproof studios, which you can't hear a plane, a train, you can't hear anything. You couldn't hear a nuclear bomb if it went off. It might shake the building, but you couldn't hear it, But then when Netflix came, they made them all soundproof, and then they built more. And so I forgot how many they have now, 24?
Well, that's the answer. And and my wife has been working on these, what do they call them? It's a huge wraparound 360 video screen. It's like the Dome in Las Vegas.
The Sphere?
Right, yeah. I forgot what my wife's been working on. There's one in Canyon Country up in Los Angeles, and they're building them all over the world. And I think that's where things are going to be shot in these places, and they can build it anywhere.
Yeah, they're immersive,
they are building it anywhere.
They're immersive.
Yes, it's this immersive thing, and you can change sets in a second.
Yeah,
and it's a moving set, and it's it's everything. It's everything.
Cool.
And
tell us your wife's
AI
name
is
and
replacing us anyway.
Tell her her
Margarita
name.
Pigeon.
Margarita Pigeon. Which
Margarita Pigeon.
Which is the most wonderful. She should be an actress with that kind of name. Doesn't that sound like a stage name? But she does. Tell us what she does.
She's a hairdresser, but she's works in theater, film, and television. And she often runs departments for films. A couple of years ago, she won a makeup and hair award for Our Country. Our Flag Means Death. And she did some period hair. It was a pirate show. I'm very proud of her. We met doing theater. She started out doing opera and theater, period theater. I met her at a place called the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. It's a great old theater company, a regional repertory theater company with a grand theater called the Geary Theater there. And I was performing there as an actor because a guy named Ed Hastings, who had been the dean of students at Yale, and he was now the artistic director at the American Conservatory Theater, invited me to his office, and he had seen me in some of the small theater things, and he had said, "What are you doing with your life?" And I said, "I'm working down at Fantasy and Flesh." And he said, "You shouldn't be doing that. You could die."
Here's my card.
And he said, "Here's my card." And he said, "Here, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to put you in a show. You'll be a spirit carrier. You'll be no lines, but I'll get you in the union, and you'll get, a couple $100 a week. We'll put you on stage for 9 shows a week. You got to quit. You probably won't be making as much money as, on the street down, right? But you'll be able to pay for your stupid little apartment, and you won't die. And
it's a start.
It's a start. Right? I'll get you in the union. Right? Right now you got a union card and a union job." He said, "In the daytime, instead of smoking weed and whatever, we have a master's program here, a master of fine arts program in acting, and some of the best theater teachers in the country, in the world. And you just walk into any class you want to walk into, and they'll let you just walk into any class. You're a company member, walk into any class, and you got this." So he employed me for 6 years. Wow. And I got the best theater education that money can buy, a free ride. I walked into every class I could, and I soaked up all of that knowledge. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Ed Hastings, who did that for me.
Well,
and
that's an important
and that's where
thing.
I met my wife. Is at the American Conservatory Theater. I was doing a Dickens, Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. I was Jacob Marley's ghost. Okay, great costume. Right. I did this thing. She worked in the wig department there because we had to have wigs, and she's younger than I am, so I was kind of
Bob
it was
understands
a little bit
that.
inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob. Yeah,
Same.
they get you. As a matter of fact, my friend, the wig master at the time, Rick Eccles, who was this fabulous gay old Asian man, said, I saw this girl sitting there with her legs up on the desk, and I said, oh, who's that? He said, you stay away from her. She's 19. She's 19. You stay away from her. Don't even talk to her. Don't even talk to her. I was halfway to her I was halfway to as he was saying that, I was halfway across the room at the time.
Yeah,
you understand?
Yeah.
You don't don't talk to her. You don't.
Yeah, and you can't stop fate, can you? He couldn't stop it.
Yeah, fate's fate. And we're still married.
I know. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was a funny story.
And we've worked on several things together, sets and things like that. We run into each other, and that's been nice.
Yeah.
We worked on Scorpion.
Oh, you did work on that together. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. I'm looking at our time here. I want to talk about something, and I don't know if you want to talk about him, but Bob and I are huge dog people. We have 2 now, and we've had many.
Yeah.
And you got a bulldog, and I want you to tell a little story of...
Some years ago, Louis gone, and I miss him. I miss him so much every day. But Louis was a rescue. Mm-hmm. He came from Southern California Dog Rescue, SoCal Bulldog Rescue. Mm-hmm. It's a terrific organization. Mm-hmm. And Louis is named after my mother's maiden name, Louis, which is a Chinese last name. Mabel Louis was my mother's name. She was a very artistic woman, fabulous woman. She died when I was in my early 20s.
She was in some of the shows you were in, right?
Yeah. Before she died, she had cancer twice in her life. And she died of cancer, and my father and I took care of her at home because she didn't want to die in a hospital.
Right. I did the same with my brother.
It is the Asian, yeah. And it's a Chinese thing that we take care of our people, parents. But before she died, I was doing a little acting. I guess it was a modeling job. I was supposed to be a police officer. It was an anti-graffiti ad, like a PSA, public service announcement kind of a thing. And I was supposed to have a woman that was supposed to look like my mother standing next to me, telling kids not to mess up the bus or something like this. Yeah. And the ad agency said, do you have anybody that could play your mom? And I went home that night and I said, and my mom, who was literally in pain 24/7, that it was post-operation for her. She was dying. She was undergoing chemotherapy. She had a wig that she was wearing because her hair had fallen out. And she was in constant pain, literally pain. And my mom said, you got to let me do this. I want to do this. Because I was talking about it, and I said, so I'm calling some of my friends to see if there's an actress that wants to do this thing. And my mom said, no, you got to let me do this. You gotta let me. I want to play your mom.
Isn't that great?
I said, but I'm thinking, well, you can hardly walk. You're in so much pain.
But she's a mom, and she'll play through.
She'll play through.
Yeah.
And we did it, and we got her there. Me and my dad, and we put her little wig on. We did this ad, and it appeared on all of the buses and bus stations in San Francisco.
Well, that must have been great for her and your family. Yeah.
Yeah. And just before those ads stayed up, they were on the bus after she passed. So it was a gift that she gave to me.
Yeah.
A tremendous gift. She had to endure pain to get that done.
Yeah. I can't think of a mother, though. I would do the same. If I was in the same thing for my kids, I would. Bob would do the same, I'm pretty sure. That's such a beautiful story, and I know the story from when we worked together. You told me. I don't know, we shared a lot when we worked together.
Did I really?
Yeah, I know the story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, a long time ago. I've been out of this business a long time. When I moved to San Diego, everyone said, "Oh, you're coming back in the business?" I said, "No, it's the same state, different girl."
I think we worked like maybe 2010 or 20 something like that, 2011.
Yeah, 2011.
Maybe even before that.
Yeah. 29
Something.
2009.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we were talking about Louis.
Yeah.
Louis and you have a similar origin, right? As far as didn't he come from a stripper? Am I correct that that from?
Yeah. I think so. Somebody contacted me and said he knew the person whose dog that was before I adopted them. And yeah, I think she was, again, she was
a dancer, so to speak.
A dancer or something. Yeah.
Anyway, well, he was a great bulldog, and we watched everything that you posted every day about Louis.
He was a celebrity because I took him everywhere, and he walked red carpets in Hollywood. Yep. He met he met celebrities, and everywhere I took him, just because of his vibe, just because of his nature, it was like being with a huge celebrity.
Yeah, sometimes they have four legs. Yeah. Anyway, well, he was a great experience, and I know he's no longer with us. We have a dog right now, Gigi, who, when we were in Italy for 2 weeks, we missed our dog so much that every dog we saw on the street, we fawned over and fell over, and people are like, what is wrong with these people? Why are they so crazy about my dog?
Well, no, I still do that everywhere. My neighborhood, when I go for my morning runs or my morning walk, I don't even say hello to the people. I know everybody by their dogs. I don't even know their name. I just say hello to, and every dog is Puppy to me. I call every dog Puppy. I just do. I don't know.
It's
they're better than people is what it is.
Well, I think
it's
so.
It's because they're better than people.
Yeah.
And Louis taught me a whole lot. He taught me how to be a better person because he was better than people.
Yeah, our dogs, we learn a lot from them. Gigi is a golden doodle.
Yeah, we do.
She's not a rescue. She's the only dog we ever got from a breeder. And her first hours with us, she flew home on Southwest with us. And she was passed around the cabin of the plane. She was supposed to stay under the seat.
Love it.
And the flight attendant said, no, take her out. Don't make her stay in there. So they passed her from the front of the plane to the back of the plane and then back to the front of the plane. Everybody held her. So you're supposed to have a puppy see 100 people in the first 100 days. Well, she met them in their first hour.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that was amazing. So anyway, but yeah, Bob and I love dogs, and we love Louis.
Wonderful.
So I'm so glad you shared that on social media and with everybody so that people could be part of that. It was really significant. It's a great story and a great guy, great mom and dad. And I always ask my guests when they're on this podcast of something they could pass on or what would they tell other people. What would you pass on to the next generation who are a high school kid who doesn't like classroom work and is smoking weed with the girls and they're doing a little romance? That was what my brother said. That was his favorite subject in high school was romance. I said, I didn't know they had that. He said, well, I did. Anyway, so what would you say to other young people who are starting this business? What advice would you give them? Do you have any?
Don't be an actor. People told me not to, but I didn't have a choice. So if you don't have a choice, you're going to do it. I just in life in general, I think that stay humble and grateful. By humble, I don't mean to be a meek person necessarily. I mean you should feel small when you stand beside the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
You should be humble to yourself, so that you should be honest, and you shouldn't lie, and most of all, you shouldn't lie to yourself. And to be grateful, because the grateful keeps you happy. It keeps you in the right perspective. Being humble and grateful go hand in hand. You're humble to the experience of life, so you remember to be grateful, and you are grateful because you understand that ain't nothing owed to you, and everything is this gift, life, everything, every experience is this gift. And I am not a hugely successful person. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not famous. I'm not rich. I'm a failed actor, if you will, because I didn't achieve, I ain't got no Academy Award or whatever. But in failure over and over and over again, that is success itself, because the road to success is paved with failure. My whole career is based on failure, because the system is that I audition a lot. I audition for 100 things, and I might get cast in one.
Right.
So my whole career is an exercise in failure and the acceptance of failure and the working with it and making that the road to the success, because that is what it is. You've got to do the work, and you've got to fail until you got to make it. You fake it until you make it. That is it. That's their life. It's one step after another. And when you trip and fall, you get up.
Well, you have to be able to handle rejection as an actor, and as an Asian male actor. In your defense, I wouldn't say failure. I would say there weren't a lot of roles, Kelvin.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing that and being aware of that. My career it's only been recently that things like Beef have broken through, and more of our stories being told on television and film, because there is a new generation of writers, producers, directors, those people behind the camera, behind the pen, behind the keyboard. That's why I have more opportunities now.
And I think you will have more. I really expect, you say you're not a leading man, but I really expect that we are going to see you, the best is yet to come. I really believe that. So hold on to that.
I have to kind of buy into that too. Although I really struggle with feeling old. My body is breaking down. No, I'm just being real, being honest.
Well, you're talking to somebody who's 70 and somebody who's 80. Hard. We understand. I told Bob this morning, I feel like sometimes the walls are coming in, but I don't want to talk about that. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing the things that I couldn't do when I was younger. I was too afraid to do. I'm just doing these things, and, balls to the wall. Like, oops, this is a clean podcast, but I don't care what people think anymore. Well, I'm past that. I'm way past that. And no filter is my hashtag. But anyway, but I think the best is yet to come for you. And I'm expecting it no matter what your age is. Look at Clint Eastwood. Look at all these people who've been working all these years. Look at Dennis Hopper until cancer got him. He was 72. You're not anywhere near that. So he was still working. And, he was a trip to work with, that's for sure. But I appreciate your time and we're going to stay in touch, and maybe you can come down south and make a knife with Mr. Bob.
That would be fun, Kelvin.
That would be the time of my life, man. That would be the fantasy of my life. I am in awe of what you do. I am. Well, I would love to do that sometime.
You're welcome to come down to the shop, spend a couple of days, and I'd be willing to bet you dollars to donuts that we'll get something done that will cut and at least be able to use it to cut cheese with.
Wow. Because I've got ideas, man.
Okay.
I've got ideas.
Write them down, because draw them.
Bob, I think just before we leave, Bob, here's a request for you. I think you ought to make a kitchen knife, a chef's knife.
He does.
A tactical chef's knife.
He does.
I've done several.
Oh, shit.
Wait do you see our knife rack? I'm going to send you a picture of our knife rack. He doesn't do them for other companies because there's so many kitchen knife companies. The market is flooded. Now there's a new market for Nick Rossi is one of the guys, David Beaver, who forge their own steel and whatever. And Bob's not going to be forging steel at 80 probably.
Well, actually, I did at Penland last year.
You did.
2 years
That's
ago.
right. You were at Penland. Oh, Penland, what a craft school that was.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, they're underwater right now. Anyway, well, thank you again, and stay in touch, and we mean it about the offer. Okay?
Absolutely.
And we want to meet Miss Margarita Pigeon.
I'll bring her down.
Okay.
That would really be nice.
All right. All right, sweetie. I love you, and thanks for doing this for us. All right.
I'll even sweep the floor for you. I'll clean up my shop and sweep the floor.
Don't, man. I want to see the little scraps of metal.
Well, there's lots of them. Little curly cues. The dog comes in with on her paws.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
Okay. All right, sweetie.
Okay.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please share this with a friend and subscribe where you listen to podcasts. Support our efforts through Patreon at TheKnifeWife, and for all Terzuola goodness, go to terzuola.net. And remember, if you're not laughing, you're not living. Comments and questions can be made on Instagram at The KnifeWife Podcast or our Facebook group, The KnifeWife Podcast. And if you're a couple who work together and would like to be on our podcast, tell us about yourself with an email at eccentricsuz.com or terzuola.net.